Hello everybody, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today we are returning to Gary Grigsby's Bombing the Reich, the World War II strategic bombing campaign game. This is Gary Grigsby's Eagle Day to Bombing the Reich, which also includes, it's basically two games packaged into one. One covers the Battle of Britain, the other covers the strategic bomber offensive from middle of 1943 to the conclusion of the war, and puts you in the shoes of the Americans and the British in the combined bomber offensive. In today's video, we are going to be playing through the September 14th, 1943 turn. Still early-ish in the game. We have been waging kind of a steel campaign against the Germans, hitting the steel targets that we can. If we actually take a look at the targets that are steel mills, we can see here we have hit targets in not south of Charleroi, one there, and then one in Lille. So we've hit 3 steel mills in sort of the Low Countries, and I think this is eastern France. There's not really much. The game obviously doesn't have all the targets because there's no steel mills in Paris or anything northern France. There are some in the south of France, but not many. There are some deeper ones down toward Luxembourg and toward Metz, but we haven't been able to hit those yet. We still don't have long-range fighters yet, so that's something to keep in mind. We have hit the Rhine and the Ruhr steel mills pretty hard. The Friedrich Alfred Hütte steel mill, capacity 4. The August Thyssen Hütte steel mill, capacity 5. Near Duisburg, the Krupp Borbach Stahlwerk, which is a huge steel mill, capacity 10, one of the largest on the map. And then the 20 capacity, the largest steel mill on the map, the Krupp Gustahlfabrik, also in the Ruhr. So these factories all suffered over 80% destruction. The 3 in sort of France and Belgium also. And then the Stahlwerk Krieger, which was not part of our steel offensive, it was just previously damaged. Capacity 4, moderately damaged before the game started. Same for Wittenwurstadt, Ruhrstadt, and Hosch. Oh my goodness, I should not be pronouncing German words. I took German, believe it or not. There are a bunch of additional steel mills further into Germany, but all places, like one near Prague, I have no way of hitting without my bomber force really getting obliterated. So I don't know. I'm kind of wondering if this last 3 to 4 day offensive is ready to wrap up and maybe we shift to rubber or some other target. It doesn't matter for today. Today, the steel plan has to be put on hold because I've been given direction to bomb U-boats. It's a political target, and so we are hitting the targets near Lorient because we've already badly hit the Brest location. So we're sending 218 B-17s to Lorient. The 306 bomb group will be leading that raid. There are no escorts. We're sending 125 B-17Fs and 93 B-17Gs. So a pretty good sized raid at 25,000 feet, a little bit higher altitude, probably less accuracy. But these targets don't give me points. U-boat targets, well, U-boat factories can give you industrial damage points, but U-boat pens do not. And we're required to hit these U-boat pens. And so hitting these will basically not do anything except get the politicians off my back. And it's too far west. All of our escorts, I've sort of optimized my escorts for the limited range that they have for allowing me to hit into the Ruhr and these targets here in the Low Countries and parts of France. But Western France, less so, and it's too far south. We could have a few squadrons in reach of Brest, but nothing toward Lorient. And so what we're doing here is we've got a series of bombing raids going on this turn. We've got medium bombers and some British tactical bombers hitting all of the airfields in Brest. Everything north of Vannes is being hit. Not Rennes airfield, so hopefully there's nothing there, but we're hitting all the airfields in Brest. We're hitting some of the airfields in Normandy and extending that east a little bit. So hopefully, if there's anything in easy reach of these B-17s, it gets hit. Now, obviously, if there's anything south near Saint-Nazaire or near Nantes, then obviously these fighters could fly up, but that's a longer flight for them, so they won't have as much combat time to engage us. Rennes Airfield, I suppose, is the one real risk, but we're sending the bombers in on these airfields before the raid. So hopefully that helps. We do have some recon. We're going to be reconning a couple of steel mills here south of Liege, potentially for a raid tomorrow. We're sending some recon flights out to a steel mill near Bremen. Maybe we'd want to take a deep penetration strike there. And then that's pretty much it in France. We're doing a lot of recon flights in Italy. We're still on the Operation Avalanche orders, so we are required to hit basically airfields, rail depots, ground units, but we can't hit strategic targets. We can't hit factories at the moment because our directive is to hit targets supporting Operation Avalanche. I'm hoping we're getting toward the end of that. You can see we've actually pushed north of Naples now, so big chunks of Italy have been liberated from the Axis powers. We are beginning to get airfields set up here in Naples, south of Naples. I have been moving as many squadrons as I can. You have a limited number of units you can move operationally in a given turn, but I've started moving forward some of those shorter-legged fighters to try and be as close to the front line as they can as some of these airfields come online to support what I assume will be a fixing of the line somewhere south of Latoria in this general vicinity. Because I know, historically, the Americans landed Anzio to try and flank the southern positions, and I also know that Rome doesn't fall for quite a while. And so we've got these ground units which have been moving around a little bit, and they've been falling back a little bit more gradually of late. And so hopefully we're going to see the line fix, in position a bit. We have been pounding the Italian ground units as part of Avalanche. You can see orange and red for a lot of these units. That indicates high levels of damage, or at the very least disruption, which could cause an early breakthrough for the Allies in Italy to end the war sooner. But I imagine that is still a ways away. There's a lot of fresh units too, or at least moderately damaged units. And we've started to see the movement slow down a bit, so the retreat has been slowing a bit. So we'll see what happens there. A bunch of bombing raids on these ground units here, mostly B-17s, B-26s, B-25s, some Bostons, and B-24s, but a bunch of raids being carried out there too. So we'll see. This could be a light turn. I don't have really much in the way of RAF stuff at night. The RAF's largely getting a break because I flew so many recon flights. I have the maximum. The maximum number of missions you can set up in a turn are 200, and I have 200 set. So I don't have any more room for further sorties. I've been doubling up a lot of these recon flights on these airfields in Italy to try and ensure we get a good intel on where the enemy fighters are. So perhaps next turn we can send some of these fighters that have been trying to move closer to the front. Maybe we can do some fighter sweeps on some enemy airfields. I've also been upgrading my P-38s as they become available in the Mediterranean to the P-38J, which will be a better fighter than the H version. I'm only thinking of it now, but maybe we should have upgraded one of our P-47 squadrons in Europe to the 38J, because I think that is longer range. It might have been useful for an escort. Although Northern Europe was the P-38 was not a very popular fighter for bomber escort. Especially the H version. The J is a little bit better, but the H version lacked high altitude mobility or maneuverability, and so it really wasn't. It was used heavily throughout the whole war, but it was not a great high level fighter until later in the war when other options began to come along. Like I believe the J added some maneuvering flaps, which made it much better at higher altitude. But by the time the J starts coming online, you're almost backed into when the P-51 starts coming online. J might come a little early. And the P-47 is also great at high altitude, and with drop tanks has some pretty decent range as well. In any event, let's go ahead and end this turn. Let's see what the replay looks like and go from there. So we're going to do message 1, time interval 2, and we will start. So the intro ended only about 9 minutes of me chattering away. So you can see our recon flights going out first. I still prefer the round rules for this, just for what it's worth. should be a decent day visibility-wise. I also, in the med where visibility was going to be a little worse, I set them to lower altitudes where they'd come in on the under the clouds. So you can see actually quite limited cloud cover here in southern Italy. It is a very clear day, so we should have good recon results too. We shouldn't have too many flights boxed out from being able to see what they're looking at. A little bit more cloud cover in the Normandy region here in France, as you can see, but most of our flights, even northern Brest, looks like it's pretty uncovered. So yeah, I mean, I guess some of these clouds might move in before the 17s go in, but hopefully it looks like it should be. You know, it's kind of unfortunate that we got a mandatory day to do U-boat attacks, because a day like this with such limited cloud cover would be a great day to bomb targets in Northern Europe instead of spending it to bomb political targets, especially now that it looks like Lorient might even be on fringe cloud cover to begin with. But doesn't look like the Germans are flying too many aircraft in defense here. I don't even see anything up. Now, the AI doesn't typically send a whole lot up against recon flights, maybe an occasional plane here or there. Most of your recon casualties either happen because you coordinate it so that the aircraft come in at the wrong time and the Germans already have aircraft scrambled to deal with bombers and they just happen to stumble upon the recon flights, or sometimes they'll throw a very limited cap over an individual base. Maybe you run into that, or just frankly flak is another major reason you lose aircraft. But really limited, very, I know we're moving this turn kind of slowly, but very limited reactions here. I'm waiting to see. It is currently 7:30, so we're not even into the second round of recon flights. I basically sent a round on every one of these, and that's the reason we got to the 200 max targets so quickly, is every single target I sent at least 2 recon flights. Sorry about that. Every single flight I sent, basically target, I sent 2 recon flights in Italy. Every one in Northern Europe, I sent at least 3, plus the raids. So we massively oversaturated targets with recon to ensure that if a plane got shot down due to flak, if it didn't see the target due to cloud cover, that we would get the results in. And it does look like we're getting the first wave pretty much uniformly is getting its recon in. So far, no aircraft lost to flak or fighters. So good news there. We did just see, it looks like one target obstructed up north here in Italy. Probably not a place I would even bomb anyway. Probably beyond my my effective range of coverage right now with the aircraft that we have at our disposal. But at least one failed recon flight in the initial 7 a.m. flights. And then we did just lose a a Spitfire destroyed by flak over one of those steel mills near Liège. So that's not great. That's a tough target to go in on, because I did see that they had a large flak unit assigned to guard the target too. So it wasn't just the target's native defenses, it was also the additional sort of mobile flak units that had been redeployed to that steel mill to guard it. So anyway, almost 8 o'clock. We're going to get another one of these. Let's go ahead and maybe speed time up a little bit. Okay. All right, let's see where we're at here. It is 8:30 now, and the second wave's coming in. A little bit more cloud cover drifting south in Italy, but still looks pretty good. I do see some green dots up in Northern Europe, indicating there's at least some German fighter coverage up. We've now lost 2 Allied aircraft, but again, very limited losses so far. Looks like there are... I didn't see what that was. I don't think any of my bombing raids come until later. 3 F-190s there. And then along the Normandy coast, I saw at least 3 or 4 small groups of German fighters there. Some smoke generators, it looked like. So 8:37, Unable to spot target over Liege. That's not great. I don't know if we'll get those steel mills photographed, or maybe only one of them. Okay. Another Spitfire destroyed by flak over the Ruhr. What does that make? 3 aircraft destroyed. Super exciting. Okay. A little bit of a all quiet on the Western Front type turn so far, despite the huge surge of recon flights. We don't have as good a coverage with recon flights over Northern Europe today. We really committed to basically flying everything that could fly over Italy. All right, our raids should be getting... I think our bombing raids start between 9 and 10 o'clock, so we should get a little bit more action here soon. But, yeah, let's just speed things up a tad, I think. I don't see any indication of my bombers going in quite yet. Maybe it's a 10 o'clock strike. 3 D520s, huh? Okay. We're getting a little bit more unable to locate target as the day moves on and clouds move in a bit. So we'll speed things up a little bit here. We'll slow them down at 1. Destroyed by flak over Bremen. 24 Typhoons are bombing an airfield here in northern France. More Typhoons bombing an airfield near Cherbourg. No indication of any German aircraft at these fields yet. We got some machine guns destroyed by the bombers. Another airfield here in Cherbourg getting hit. I didn't have intel that any of these raids had enemy aircraft. I mainly set these raids up because I wanted to destroy all the airfields that were close-ish to where the bombing raid would be going in the west. I knew since I wasn't going to be having B-17s with escorts that my best chance to keep the Germans off us would be, if not to destroy the aircraft on the ground, at least disrupt their operations, maybe get some of them to take off at some of these raids and have them sort of out of fuel and ammo by the time of the actual bombing raids. And barring that, maybe just disrupting the operations at the airfield with some damage that would prevent them from flying against the 17s going after the target. But you can see here so far, looks like it's mostly just bombing practice. We've been destroying some anti-aircraft machine guns. We've seen almost no indication of any damage to enemy personnel on the ground, or at least aircraft on the ground. Meanwhile, the raids in Italy have started. We've got, I think, 128 B-17s are hitting the 2nd parachute troop. And then it looks like some of their escorts, because there's no German fighters around, are strafing some of the rail yard adjacent to where the parachute troops are. We've also got some P-38s strafing the infantry down on the treetop levels. Somehow they dove down from 17,000 feet, but which, you know, whatever. But they're doing some damage here, it looks like. Maybe doing a little bit of damage to the infantry. They're going to take some flak damage, of course, if you're going to be diving down into the ditches versus the infantry and going after 20 millimeter anti-aircraft. So this may be a weird day where, I mean, we've been doing a decent job, I think, inflicting, 50, 60, 70 aircraft a day on the Germans, really stressing their industry and their pilot training to be able to keep up. Mostly their industry, because most of the aircraft have been destroyed on the ground. This feels like a turn where they're going to get a turn back to recoup some of those losses. But hey, maybe we'll at least take some of these airfields in Western France out for a few days. Counterpoint, too, is so far with so little enemy action and mostly high-level bombing on these airfields, our own losses should be muted. I mean, we've lost 5 aircraft so far, but 4 of those were recon flights, so they weren't like our actual bombing crews. And we've had a number of raids going so far that have basically lost nothing. We've got a single enemy D-520, a captured French aircraft, just dove in on a Typhoon raid, destroying one of those planes. I thought they should have had an escort, but it was just a lone enemy fighter too, so maybe not. Thinking about speeding time up. I know this is probably not super exciting. A little bit of a quiet turn today, I think. Unless something happens. 2 whirlwinds destroyed by flak. That's not great. I just don't see a lot of purpose to bombing the enemy infantry with our Typhoons. Or frankly, even the rail depots in some of these places. It's weird to be looking at a Gary Grigsby game like this and complain there's not enough targets, but they definitely shortchange certain areas, certain types of targets, and it feels like we could be hitting more stuff if the game had more targets. Bombing Gale Airfield. There's 12 F-190s maybe coming after them. Mustangs are... Ooh, we got an aircraft on the ground near Enschede. Some 109s getting destroyed. That was one sweep I did set up with Mustangs in Holland against a base that we had at least 2-day-old information that there were enemy aircraft on the ground there, and they do appear to be destroying some Bf-109Gs and damaging some on the ground. The 109G6, the sort of workhorse of the German Air Force in this period. So definitely nice to be doing some damage to not just the individual aircraft, but also the squadrons that we're hitting here. You could destroy 4 aircraft and damage 8, and in the macro war sense, that doesn't matter, but you just effectively disabled a squadron at a base in terms of its ability to fight tomorrow, probably. At least that's what I'm hoping. Looks like most of these aircraft are going in on the airfield too without losing too much in the way of anti-aircraft, so we're getting a nice impact on the squadron here. Like, there are 40 aircraft here. I think I've seen 8, 9, 10 aircraft already destroyed, with probably at least equal number of that damaged. That's going to basically remove that squadron from operations for several days, I would think. Now, it doesn't tell me, it's Messerschmitt 1 versus Messerschmitt 2, so some of this could be duplicate damage, but we're doing quite a bit of damage here on this squadron. Good results from the strafing mission. It's one of the few we actually scheduled. Most of the other bombing raids are kind of top level. And again, most of the other squadron raids, we didn't have any intel on there being aircraft here. There were 2 days ago that we had intel on this field. Now, sometimes frequently, the Germans will move aircraft between fields a lot to keep you unaware of where they are. But 2 days is a reasonable time period for us to think maybe there's Germans there. Meanwhile, we've got some Spitfires getting jumped by some 190s there. We lost one in an air-to-air fight. Whirlwind just got jumped, shot down. 190s jumping some of these Mustangs on their way home. So we are losing. The bad thing for us is we're losing these pilots over enemy territory, and the aircraft that we were destroying were all on the ground, so we weren't killing any pilots there. But we did destroy 15 109 G6s. That's a good chunk for such a quiet turn to be able to say, well, on a turn where nothing happened, the enemy lost at least 15 109s. I mean, I don't know what they produce every day, but I think the Germans produced about 2,000 aircraft total, 2,000 to 3,000 aircraft total around this time period per month. So if you take the conservative version of that on a 31-day month, that's 64, 65 aircraft a day. 15 of one type presumably that's close to the full production allotment for a single day of 109s. Maybe not. Even if they produce 30, though, losing half their reinforcement allotment on a quiet day, I think that means something. Meanwhile, it seems like the enemy air force really has evaporated over Italy. When Italy did surrender a few days ago, the Germans lost quite a few aircraft in their potential inventory to throw at us. But even the German aircraft over Italy, I mean, there's definitely still squadrons down there, but they're not flying anything against these raids against their troops. You can see these Italian raids are going in against enemy infantry. Meanwhile, we did see that there was a bombing raid delayed over Europe. Not sure if those were the U-boat pen bombers or not. I think I actually forgot to do a post-battle damage assessment on the U-boat pens. I just assume bombing U-boat pens is pointless, but again, it's a political thing in the game. Meanwhile, this raid is doing quite a bit of damage to the enemy troops here northwest of Naples. Nope, B-17s are over the target. The target is visible. Good, okay. So we are losing some B-17s to flak. It doesn't look like the enemy got any fighters up to intercept them. Nothing that I see anyway. And the lead bomber did spot the target through the Norden and is dropping at least close-ish on target. I mean, it's possible that the raid is ineffective. There certainly seems to be a good amount of flak. We're losing several bombers to flak. But no fighters have come out at us. I don't know if that's because all their fighters moved east into the Ruhr due to our previous bombing campaign. I don't know if that's because of the raids against their airfields earlier in the day. I'm not 100% sure, but that's a good result regardless. All right, and then we're hitting a rail yard with some B-25s. Italy. That rail yard was undamaged. P-39s really want to get down and dirty with enemy flak around. I was just like, I don't know if I would do that. If I was a P-38 pilot assigned to a bomber escort, you're going to make me go strafe guys on the deck? That feels like the risk level is very different. Also, I do see some German fighters over Brest right now and the minimap on the lower corner. I think our B-17s are out over the channel now, so hopefully there's not too much risk there. Getting a couple of aircraft crashing on the runways. Dana Reed is killed. You know, one of the other nice things of the Italian campaign situation is now finally we will have the possibility that our aircraft, as they crash damaged or engage with enemy units over the front lines, like some of those might actually come down in territory that is friendly, and so they won't all become POWs or killed, which is not the case over France right now. Everybody gets shot down up there. They're all doomed. Anyway, so we've lost 28 aircraft so far today, 15 enemy aircraft, all lost at that one airfield. And then we've got 2 British jamming raids going out, just trying to keep the German night fighters in the sky, force them to fly, burn sorties, burn fuel, bump fatigue a bit. You can see here we've got a RCM flight that went over Kiel, and it drew a decent, not a huge number, but a decent number of enemy night fighters out at them. And then I think we had one go south. And heck, even one of their aircraft, a Bf-110, crashed in the dark. So they lose one more plane from that. We lost a squadron. We lost a couple of squadron commanders here. I'm assuming some of these are fighters. Second parachute's withdrawing 30 miles. But looks like very limited movement for the ground units in Italy. So let's go ahead and take that off. You can see here it looks like we badly damaged the Cancello area. The troops moved north, so they're moved away, but at least the rail depot here was damaged. Not a lot of damage to the other troops in these positions. I don't know if they're like in trenches or if the trench line's going to be closer to Littoria. I'm not sure. I have to go look at an atlas map. If we took a look at the after action, let's Scroll up based on size of the raid. 218 bombers hitting the U-Pens at Lorient. Claims 85% damage. I'd be skeptical of that, but it should be enough to keep the politicians off our back for a little bit. Very limited damage done to the 2nd Paratroop or 3rd Panzer Grenadiers in terms of damage, although sometimes disruption can be a bit better than that. Airfields and rail depots, we did a bit more damage. 29th Panzer Grenadiers, whoop, 95 damage. These guys got pretty badly wrecked, at least their disruption anyway. So that was a good result. Bombers lost. We lost 6 out of 218 B-17s. That's not too bad. I would have preferred to lose none, considering there were no enemy fighters, but they must have had a lot of flak there. So, if we take a look at aircraft losses for the day, we lost 2 B-17Fs, 4 B-17Gs, 3 B-24D Liberators, 2 P-39Qs, 3 P-38Hs, 1 P-38J, 1 Spitfire 9C, 4 Whirlwind 1As, 1 Hurricane. The enemy lost 15 BF-109 G6s, and well, it should say 1 for the BF-110 if they really did crash, but maybe it was just damaged. 2,600 Allied sorties. The Axis only flew 316 aircraft, so their aircraft got a nice break, even as much as we attempted to not have them have a break. Strategic bombing damage against the enemy is at 1,420. Terror bombing is at 103,000. I think at one point we had it like at 111,000. I think that was the peak. We've been a little bit lower lately. The strategic bombing's fallen off by 300 or 400 points also. German ready aircraft are at 2,700. I want to say that's about 500 higher than it had been a few days ago. Again, a very light day from a sortie point of view. We lost 25 pilots killed out of 28 planes shot down, 7 pilots MIA, 8 pilots wounded. So I don't know how we had more pilots MIA or KIA than we had planes lost. I don't usually see that even when you factor in multi-crew aircraft. And we lost 15 planes, but only 1 pilot wounded. And Western Med will be significantly worse weather, Central Med significantly worse, and Eastern Med moderately worse. So Italy will be a bad day weather-wise. Meanwhile, it looks like Western Europe, Central Europe, and Eastern Europe will have limited change to the weather. So maybe we'll have a chance. Go to replacements and the pool. There are no P-38Js in the pool right now. We've deployed all 120 to the front. We're waiting for more production, so those squadrons that fly them can't really afford to lose too much. 237 P-47 and D6s are in the pool, so we could swap aircraft out for those. B-17Gs, we've got 7 in the pool. And then 565 Fs because we've started swapping out F squadrons. But production hasn't yet gotten to a point where we're super comfortable. A lot of B-24s. If you want to in this game, as the Americans, you could say the B-24 should be your main strategic bomber. It is a heavier bomber. It carries a better bomb load. It's a more modern aircraft. It's not as rugged. But in theory, if you wanted to, you could swap out most of the 8th Air Force with B-24s. No P-51s yet. And we didn't really fly anything else, so. Apparently you get some yaks eventually. Interesting. All right. If we end the phase here, actually, let's take a look at top pilots. Anybody an ace yet? No aces. 4 guys with 4 kills. Okay. So the next turn, no U-boat requirement here. 12th Air Force is still on avalanche duty, but no U-boat requirement. See, we hit these airfields pretty decently. No sign of any enemy fighters being picked up on intel. So it looks like they had one airfield. It was down here. This still says 40 fighters, but apparently we didn't hit it too hard. Brest is at 62 damage. Lorient's at 84. Hopefully the fact that two of the 5 pens on the western coast of France badly damaged, so hopefully that'll be good enough for the politicians. And then the steel mills south of Liège. We did get at least one recon flight in on each, so we could go with a bombing raid there if we wanted. We did not get intel on the steel mill south of Bremen, unfortunately. That did not survive. The steel mill south of Wilhelmshaven, however, did, so we could go with a raid there. Meanwhile, in Italy, what do we see? Anything? Do we get more airfields further north? Looks like nothing further north on the west coast, just the one at Foggia, so no new airfields, at least no further north airfields. We'll want to probably move some squadrons around. Okay. How do we have ready aircraft? 48. Okay. Just seeing if all these guys are ready to fly, because some of these units were moved last turn, but it looks like most of them were able to just fly straight to these airfields and they're good to fight. So we should have a better situation with fighters. We had very limited fighter escorts in Italy last turn, but it didn't really seem like it mattered either. I don't know that we even saw any real enemy fighter. Like, there was almost no activity, maybe none, in the Italian theater last turn, which is unfortunate. Yeah, like, I'm not seeing anything on these airfields we reconned. They must have pulled their fighters further north to defend the industrial targets and said sorry to the troops, because there is crickets even well north of Rome. Okay. We had been hitting them pretty hard in Italy, but and then what was the airfield we strafed the heck out of? Down here. We claimed there were 40 aircraft here. 3 days ago was the last recon. Okay. Well, I think this is something we can work with. I think we can unleash. How many bombers do we have? I'm not gonna. This isn't gonna be the actual raid, but in theory, if we wanted to do a 17 raid, we did lose 6. Obviously, presumably just flying, and the fact that there was damage. Some planes took damage. Some of these squadrons, like the G squadrons, also don't really have full replacements yet. So some of them are under strength. But what would a max effort look like from the B-17 wings? 424 bombers? Okay. So we could do 424 B-17s, which is not a huge raid, but I mean, that's a big raid. For one target, anyway. The B-24s are where? Because there are a couple of B-24 groups. We could do 32 B-24s from the 392nd Bomb Group. We've got some British B-24 groups also. And if we wanted to do a B-26 group, I'm assuming we're at the like 120 or so. 115 ready, so okay. All right. Well, I don't know. I guess let's check one other thing. I don't know what I want to do for bombing yet. So we're not going to do another episode quite yet. But in theory, what could we do from a RAF night? This green line represents radar guided, so that's where you get much more accurate raids, I believe. But the RAF, like some of these guys haven't flown for 3 days. Most of them haven't, actually, it looks like. We've been neglecting the nighttime bombing. Maybe we do a max effort and send all the bombers we can out. We could even do multiple cities. We don't have to hit them all on the same target, especially since we've already destroyed some of the biggest Ruhr cities like Essen, Dusseldorf. Maybe just overwhelm the night fighters with 6 or 7 decently sized raids we could, maybe. So we have 1,240 night bombers that are ready for action. That's quite a few. We could divide that up between 3 different targets and still hit them pretty hard. Or you could go at the same target from multiple directions. That's how you maximize this area of destruction in these circles. Frankfurt's got a nice chunk that's destroyed north of the city, but Frankfurt feels like a good target to hit. Mannheim's pretty badly beat up. Could do Hanover too. Bremen, not in good shape. What if we did smaller targets? What if we hit the Rhine? I don't know how much terror damage points you get from that. But like if we hit Ham, we could go ham on Ham. Hit Castle. Go for Kiel. I don't know. We'll see. We will think about that, and this will just be a shorter episode. I am probably going to start a different series. I'm not sure what yet. Maybe more Ultimate General American Revolution. Maybe Ultimate Admiral Dreadnoughts. They've had a lot of updates since the last time we played that. We do need to get back to Panzer General, but I played so much Strategic Command, I wanted to give a break and play some other stuff as well. So be curious if there's other games you'd like to see me cover on the channel. With that being said, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. I hope you guys did enjoy, and until next time, this is the Historical Gamer saying thank you for watching, and I'm out.